Next up, we're going to talk about the digital economy and Europe's role with it. And your moderator will be Ryan Heath, who is the author of, I think, already a must-read column on EU politics. It's called The Brussels Playbook. It lands in your mailbox every morning at 7 o'clock, we hope. You can sign up for it on our site. It is free and it is great. Ryan, come up. And joining him will be Andrus Ansip, who is the Vice President for the Digital Single Market, Schaake, who's a member of the European Parliament, and Mazzella, who is the Chief Executive Officer of BlaBlaCar.
Okay, come on up, guys. And I just want to say, well, yes, a round of applause, first of all. And I want to say how excited on behalf of the Politico tech team, and indeed all of the journalists that we are, to have such three excellent panelists as you here to join us. We've got a team of 5 tech journalists, but I think one of the points that will come out of this discussion is that everything is digital today. So every Politico journalist is a digital journalist, and that's why you're also important for this event tonight. We've got a little section in the morning playbook called Facts of Life. And so I think the fact of life to address here is that we're no longer talking about a digital sector in the economy. We're talking about an economy that is digital. So on that note, I think we want to go straight into the discussions. We've got, with Mr. Ansip, the key decider, the man in Europe's hot seat when it comes to digital issues. With Schaake, we've got the key connector. I don't know a more connected person in town and as a young global leader across the world for all of the issues that she's involved in. And we've got the key guinea pig. We've got Mazzella up the other end here. He is a hero, in my opinion. He not only transports 2 million people a month with BlaBlaCar, he created a startup that is hugely successful. He did it in France, and that takes a lot of work. And he's still here. We're going to ask him about that later. He didn't run off to Silicon Valley like a lot of people have felt forced to do. So I think what we need to do is go straight into your views, Mr. Ansip. We've got an economy that is digital, but Europe is divided about that fact. They're divided about whether to accept it. So I want to ask, what are you going to change in that regard with your digital single market plans? And why should we believe you this time? Why is this time different?
I would like to create digital single market in the European Union, and I would like to do it together with you and together with Politico. We were able to create a single market in physical meaning, but sorry to say, digital single market does not exist yet in the European Union, and cost of non-European digital meaning is huge. According to analysis prepared by the European Parliament, 340 billion euros per year. So, but this is not a question just about money. It's a question about fundamental rights also. We are discriminating our people with the geo-blocking today. We have to change this situation, and we have to provide more freedoms to our people. Digital single market, it's about growth, jobs, and more freedoms.
And so you think those freedoms can survive the overwhelming innovations that are happening in our world in terms of Internet of Things, in terms of the fact that you're tracked everywhere you go online now? Do you think our freedoms can survive that? You're going to build that into this plan?
Yes, of course. Talking about the Internet of Things, then it's very difficult to imagine Europe and Internet of Things, connected cars without digital single market. Yes, we have already some really good examples about connected cars, for example, about new platforms. Scania is able to get information from all their cars. They connected 110,000 cars already after every 5 minutes. They are even able to create track trains. Distance between cars is very short, but when and this way we're talking about cars. So
doesn't sound like a very connected car out
in
back.
this way, those Scania cars they are able to save 5 to 6% from your fuel, but it means if the driver of the first car has to push on brakes, then all the other cars, they have to stop automatically. So Scania was able to do this, but does it mean that all those companies in Europe, they have to create environment for their products themselves in the European Union? We have to create environment which allows to scale up for startups here in the European Union. We have to provide a really good business environment also for our big industries here in the European Union.
Indeed. Now, Frederick, do you believe, Mr. Ansip, do you think that you're going to get what you need to stay in Europe and not only start in Europe out of a plan for a digital single market? And what are you looking for in that plan?
I'd say, first of all, I want to, and I think we will. We will be able to stay here because we'll be able to structure the entire company to not only go cross borders and go across the difficulties that we are meeting, but also I do believe that in the next years, in the following years, since the problem is becoming so obvious, that we will be able to make a unified methods so that companies like us can grow. We begin to see that because we gave the example of Spotify, which is a company which went to the US and then it's coming back on the market here. But there are also other companies which were born here and which are now totally global, like Criteo, like King, like Just Eat, like those are global players born in Europe, and they've been expanding a lot. So it is now possible to create actually companies which are really global, made in Europe. But then it requires to build teams which are able to go across borders. And it's funny because in the previous talk we were saying about the fact that we need to learn from each other and countries need to learn from each other to be able to go scale and find a generic way to handle the problems. It's the same in a company which grows like us. We're now in 19 countries and we have teams internally which we call either the growth team or the think team. And those teams are in charge of picking up the best practices in each country so that we don't make the same mistake twice when we expand, because we have to expand so fast that we can't afford to do twice the same mistake. And so we make sure everything is synchronized, and we have teams which are in charge of making sure we try new things. When we fail fast, and we don't reproduce things which have failed, and we're able to reproduce what has worked. And it helps us grow super fast. Since the beginning of the year, we have expanded the service in 6 countries. We've opened in India, Romania, Serbia, Hungary, Croatia, and Mexico yesterday.
Yep. And do you think you have the freedoms to expand in the way you want, or are you worried that the French government will block you choosing the partners that you want, as it tried to do with Dailymotion?
No, I think the mindset is changing, and people are understanding that the common interest of everybody is that companies as well can breathe, and then you should let them breathe as much as you can, because they will bring economic return to the country. They will bring new jobs. I mean, with those companies, we are also not only creating economic value, but we're also creating new jobs for the future generations. Because what happens is when we look at the American companies in the Silicon Valley and we're like, oh, they're able to grow super fast and they have like, but they have the entire ecosystem. They have not only the finance ecosystem to finance their growth, but they also have the resources. If you have an idea, a very good idea, and you can get funds, and it's like there's lots of funds in the US that you can find, then you can also find people who are able to execute the idea, and people who are used to hyper-growth digital companies. And we are getting to that point where we now have people who know how to build hyper-growth digital companies made in Europe. We're a bit late, but we're getting there, and I'm really positive that we will make it.
Great. I want to turn to Maurizio now and pick up on your idea of breathing space. Great for innovators, but I look at what's been happening with the connected continent plans that have been discussed for so many years and that relate to your upcoming plan, Mr. Ansip. And I feel like in some ways we gave the member states, the national governments, too much breathing space. So breathing space for politicians wasn't very good here. And now we've seen people throw out a bunch of election promises. You know, you see these leaders, they say they're committed to digital, they mouth the right words, and then you look at what comes out of that building where the summit is happening right now, and it's a bunch of broken promises. What do you have to say to that as one of the key fighters on these issues in the Parliament?
Well, we do have a major problem when we hear every politician present nice speeches about the magic that the digital single market is going to do, and which I believe it can do. But if they're absolutely unwilling to lay the foundation to make that happen. Because the telecom single market, which is being negotiated right now, is already going to end for the European Parliament between two bad choices. The proposal by the Council lacked the leadership that I think Europe needs. We need to ensure that we create an environment for startups like yours where there's no barriers and where government does not get in the way, so that you can do what you do best, which is innovate, scale, have new ideas, create jobs, and make sure that Europe is the smartest, most successful continent. And for the telecom single market, there are three things that are important, net neutrality being one of them. And I want to zoom in on that issue particularly because I think it is one of the key foundations for the digital single market as well, because it allows fair competition in the digital single market. It allows startups an equal chance, just as the big incumbents that already have a position in the market. And most importantly, it protects internet users and consumers. And precisely here we see the European Council of Ministers unwilling to move, quite frankly, unwilling to take that big leap forward, which I know Commissioner Ansip wants to do, but he cannot do it alone. And I think his vision is based on his experience in Estonia, a country that has proven to find innovative solutions, even innovative governance. And I think that's one of those good examples that we should follow in Europe and where leadership is desperately needed. And otherwise, well, it's also up to you at Politico to hold these leaders who continue to hold these speeches like nothing has ever changed, to hold them to account and ask them how they think they're going to build a digital single market without a telecom single market.
Yeah. And is that your plan, Mr. Ansip? You made it work in Estonia. You turned it into e-Estonia, and you're going to export that model across Europe. Is that what's in your head right now?
I think it's impossible to copy experience we have in one member states, especially from the more small member states in all the other EU member states. Situation is different, history is different. Yes, we have a lot of really good examples of internet-based e-solutions from all the EU member states, but talking once again about digital single market, we have to talk also about lack of interoperability. We cannot use those really good solutions in some other countries, traveling to somewhere else, and this is a huge problem now in the European Union. But back to telecom single market, you mentioned, we all know that it happened already in the year 2006 when Vice President Viviane Reding made a proposal to abolish roaming surcharges. Neelie Kroes, as we know, continued with this job, and now where we are.
But you're cutting loose, aren't you? Like we've seen early copies of the digital single market
During the last EP elections, all the candidates who were running for the President of the European Commission promised to abolish roaming surcharges, and according to my understanding, all the politicians, they have to keep their promises. And I agree with Mariette, this proposal we got now from member states, 5 + 5 + 5, 5 minutes per roam like at home for phone calls, 5 SMS messages, roam like home during the 7 days per year. And
But what about the rest? The Council have got their
5
proposal on the
megabytes
table.
for data also. So you open your iPad, put your PIN code, and
But are you prepared to walk away from the
already.
rest in order to get your new plan that's coming on the 6th of May to make sure that gets the attention and the work that it deserves? Are you going to give up in the Council on sort of the 4 other sections of Connected Continent?
But until now, we got really strong support from member states, strong support from Parliament. There is consensus in the European Commission. So, as it was said already, optimism is our moral duty, and I'm looking forward quite optimistically. I really hope that we will be able to create this digital single market in the European Union, and it will be beneficial. for our citizens, for our own companies, and also the companies from the third countries.
Now, one of the issues that's obviously going to spark a lot of controversy as we move into these legislative proposals is copyright. Now, you were in the hot seat in another way in 2012 when the ACTA agreement blew up. So what did you learn from that experience? How did your views on copyright and on trade deals more generally, how were they affected by being in that hot seat and seeing all those protests flare up and realizing that the digital world was now coming to intersect fully with politics?
Yes, really, aim of ACTA was also to protect intellectual property rights, but because this process was not transparent at all, was not inclusive at all, the results were not the best ones. So now it's quite clear for everybody we have to change our copyright legislation, because this existing legislation is coming from the very beginning of 18th century, but world is connected, world is digital already. We have to allow to our citizens cross-border access to digital content from another EU member states. We have to allow portability of the content. When I'm talking about content, then I'm talking about movies, music, e-books, etc. And this is not a question about minorities. According to Eurobarometer, even 20% of our inhabitants, it means 100 million people in the European Union sitting at home would like to get access to the digital content from another EU member states. 271 million trips with at least one overnight stay in another EU member state are made by Europeans during the year. And those people, they would like to get access to their legally bought content in their home countries.
You have that problem,
but they are
Marietje, don't you?
blocked now.
Well, I think we all have a problem when we see citizens excited about innovative new services that they can get on their phones or their other devices, and then we see both industries that already have a comfortable position with the way things are saying no. Oh my goodness, this innovation is going to threaten us, and that come knocking on the doors of lawmakers and asking them not to change anything.
And have you heard about this coalition that's developing to try and block further legislative changes that might move towards user rights versus intellectual property holders?
Well, this is a movement that I've seen coming from the movie industry, coming from the music industry, coming from the publishers for years already. And I think for a while some of these companies thought they could stop the internet. And many of them have by now come around, but we've lost a lot of time. I think Europe sometimes faces the handicap of a head start. I mean, if you look downstairs at the cars that are at display here in our museum, they were once innovative and very cool and very new. But if we don't continue to innovate, and if we would say no to new cars, if we would say no to every technological development, and if the incumbents have too much access to ministers in the member states, then we will see a very negative effect, because my experience is that it's much easier to block a new idea than to draft an innovative policy. And this lack of innovation in our laws, while technologies develop at the speed of light, and democratic decision-making will inevitably be slower, only by being very ambitious to indeed ensure fair competition, the rights and fundamental freedoms of our citizens, will this digital single market flourish. And a lot has to happen to change that.
But sorry to say, but today's situation is lose-lose situation.
In
I
what
would
regard?
like to enjoy masterpieces created by creators, but they are not accepting my money. We would like to create win-win situation. I would like to enjoy, I'm ready to pay, and creators will get more money. Market will be bigger, everybody
So would you be
will
willing to
benefit from
mandate
that.
EU-wide licensing, for example?
cross-border access to the content or portability of the content does not mean that we will change totally this principle of territoriality, which is basis of copyright today. And it does not mean that tomorrow everybody has to sell or buy pan-European licenses. For small film producers, for example, it's very difficult to sell pan-European licenses. If some neighboring countries they are interested to show those movies, then of course, yeah, you can sell in future also territorial licenses. But I don't think we have to accept this absolute territorial exclusivity. We have to provide our people legal possibilities to get access to digital content from another countries.
I want to bring Frederic back into the discussion. Innovation, it's great, usually. Some innovations we've seen from policymakers. I won't name the member states, but I think you're familiar with some of them. Discussions like platform regulation, for example. You know, that's not necessarily going to be very helpful for innovation. And you're in, I don't know if it's a sector, but you're in the sharing economy. And that's obviously been very innovative and very controversial as well. So I wanted to ask you, what has been the impact of some of those debates on your business? I don't want to compare you to Uber, for example, but obviously Uber's a huge PR machine. It's a huge magnet for controversy. And to some extent, all people in this sector are related or in the shadow of it a little bit. What would you like the EU to do to facilitate the sharing economy? Should they be jumping in or should they stay out?
So maybe I'll just re-explain exactly what we do. We are allowing drivers who have empty seats on travels they have scheduled in advance for several hundred kilometers to actually share the seats and have passengers share the cost with them. For example, you can go from Paris to Brussels for about 20 euros. And so a driver will be able to propose 3 seats for 20 euros each, and then he will offset partly his cost. He's still not making a profit. He's still like losing money. And this is super important because it's really cost optimization. It's a cost split. And it is different from the other activities which have seen some regulatory issues. For example, if you take the price per kilometer per passenger, it's in between 5 to 7 cents a kilometer per passenger on BlaBlaCar, whereas with Uber, you will have in between 1 and 4 euros per kilometer. So like we are 20 times cheaper in terms of the price per kilometer. Our drivers are not making a profit, they're just sharing cost. This is really essential to the fact that actually it's just like if you were sharing cost with friends or family going on a holiday, for example.
So you think regulators should stay out of that there's no need to get involved?
Well, the thing is, if you want to, if you begin to say, okay, this should be, like, it can be regulated, but then regulation and taxation is something different. So you could think about regulating some of the things so that it goes into the way that we improve trust and we improve the reliability of all this system, and so we all want that and we're all pushing for that, and so the single digital market may help for that, because then if we want to do more checks and more verifications and things like that, the more unified it is, the better it will be for the service itself, and it will be easier to scale. And then for taxation, it's something different, since the drivers are losing money, then if you begin to tax it, you'll have to make tax credits to them because they're losing money. And then it doesn't work. Or you have to remove the VAT from their vehicle because you're considering that they're making a profit, so then the VAT should not be charged, and then you're losing money. So it doesn't work either. And then everything is already taxed a lot with the gas, the tolls, the cars, the insurances, like everything is taxed already. So it's just cost optimization for people. And so...
we might have to wrap up there.
Sorry.
The time's running off. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but a final thought from each of you. What's the one thing that you think needs to happen in the policy arena to help put Europe more prominently on the digital map?
My answer is very clear. We have to create digital single markets.
That's an easy one. Frederic?
I'd say we need to work on our attractiveness because we need talents to not only not leave to the US, but also to come in Europe. And so there are many ways we can create this attractiveness by simplicity. So the digital single market is also attractive, and so it will allow companies to grow by education and by proving that we are able to do that and to create jobs which are passionate jobs.
We do need a digital single market, and I think we have to look at the global perspective to see how urgent it is that we start moving. I think we've become too comfortable in thinking that our way of life will be the best and is very comfortable in a changing world, while if we don't move, it's going to be a problem for all of us. And so I think, beginning where I started, when I recalled my conversation with this startup owner, he said, we don't need anything from government. We just need you to get out of the way. And that requires a digital single market so that we can remove barriers, but it requires more. It requires an entire ecosystem of access to capital, access to talent, new immigration laws, easier bankruptcy procedures, fostering entrepreneurship, rewarding people who are creative and who want to take risk. And in this digital space, we see a lot of that, and that's really exciting because it creates jobs, especially for the too many young people in Europe that are now unemployed.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for joining us. A big round of applause.